Hello and welcome to Hair in the Hawthorn. I'm your host, Kate Ray, and today we have a person sat on the virtual couch who is no stranger in the paranormal world, and most of you will recognise him. He is a paranormal investigator on Help My House is Haunted, amongst many other things. He runs his own workshops. And I'm glad to say that not only is my team lead in the Ghost Finder Paranormal Society, but he's also a friend of mine. So let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Barri Ghai. Hi, Barry, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks, Kate.
It's really nice to have you because I've been chasing you about this, haven't I, for a while, and talk all things fairy, because I know that you, along with a lot of other people in the paranormal community, are sort of having your eyes opened a little bit more to these concepts, and it was our conversations and bits that we've worked with together that have really kind of set the ball rolling with these chats that I've been doing. Before we get into that, I know your background, but for those who don't know your background, could you, I know a nutshell is like, you know, how big's a nutshell, but in a nutshell, could you just talk us through what got you into the paranormal in the first place?
It's crazy stuff. I mean, I've always been interested in the paranormal ever since I was a kid, and I think that just came from watching films, reading books, and all of that kind of stuff. In fact, the first book I ever read, let me grab it for you. This one here. Oh my God, if I can get it without dropping everything. Mysteries of the Unexplained, Reader's
Yeah.
Digest, right? So this is the book that my mum had on her shelf, and well, before the internet. So,
Before you put that down, can you pick that back up again and just flick us through a few pages, just in case anybody hasn't seen it? I know this book. Just to,
so
it's
this book, here we go. So it has different sections on things like monsters, beyond the walls of time, the strange, unique skies, and also ghosts and the supernatural. So, and it's quite dated. I mean, this was produced back in 1983 or something, but it's got stories that really have sparked the interest of many paranormal investigators over the years. And this kind of spurred my interest on because it was one of the only books that I was interested in reading on that shelf at home. There was no internet back then, there was no programs at all, no ghost hunting programs on telly. So I read through this cover to cover probably a dozen times. And there were a few stories in there that kind of stood out to me. And one was the ghost of this woman called Anne Walker, who was brutally murdered by some farmhands in Australia somewhere many years ago. And her spirit wasn't able to rest, and she appeared to one of the killers to say, "You better hand yourself in," and stuff. Anyway, it's a very short narrative with a little picture, and the picture it's an illustration because it wasn't a genuine photograph, but it just stuck in my head. And it was one of those, can ghosts really do that? Can they come back and be like, haunt their killers? So, from that, I guess I used to love watching all the scary films that most people my age would have watched, Poltergeist, The Exorcist, and Child's Play, and all of that kind of stuff. And I loved the ghost side of things. Poltergeist to me was so scary and so revealing and interesting that I used to have those conversations with anyone and everyone. And my mum, luckily, was really into that kind of stuff, and she'd had her own paranormal experiences for many years. So those conversations took place. And I guess from the age of about 5, I had my first ghostly experience, I guess, seeing a man walk in the room, turn to look at me, then turn his head away and just walk straight to the wall. And I was 5. All I knew was that that's not normal.
Mhm.
And so I kind of got scared and ran downstairs and didn't say anything for many years. But from that, I had lots of interesting experiences, but they weren't just in my home. They were in other people's homes, my cousins and family members. So all of these things kind of culminated to the fact that I had a gift that I was able to see, and I was communicating inadvertently with spirit. And then my interest just developed from there. So I guess that I had such a manic childhood when it comes to ghosts. Things went bump in the night all the time.
Mhm.
Um, Doors opening and closing, windows opening and closing, footsteps at night. The taps would turn on in the bathroom, the light switch would go on. I was physically assaulted by something unseen as well.
Mhm.
Um, and 2 occasions, one was being scratched and one was being punched in the back. But what seemed like a small fist.
Mhm.
So I know from my own research and study into what was taking place there, it wasn't a child's spirit. It was masquerading. This energy was masquerading as a child, and haunting my home, but it was attached to me. It wasn't haunting the property. It was something that I had conjured, unfortunately, and it liked my energy, it liked my life force. So it didn't leave, and it was eventually banished away, and I got rid of it by blessing and cleansing myself, I guess, and my parents helped with that. But moving forward, probably 10, 12 years after that, I was at university, my second or third year, I can't remember. And I remember getting into bed at about 2:30 in the morning after watching Bad Boys, that wicked film, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. And got into bed, and it's an old Victorian house with about 8 or 9 bedrooms. So each one of my housemates had their own bedroom, and the rooms are huge. So I was downstairs in what would have been the kitchen dining area of the house originally, okay? And the hall light was on, but my bedroom was dark. I got into bed, turned my lamp off, put the cover over myself like this, and within a few seconds of just closing my eyes, no sleep, and let me mention, I wasn't drinking and I wasn't high on anything. Someone grabbed my shoulder and started to violently kind of get my attention. So I was like, what? Thinking it was my housemate. Pulled the cover off my face and was like, what do you want? And there was a little girl stood by my bed, and I could see, and I was 19 years of age, and I could see everything. I could see her hair color, her skin color, what she was wearing, her teeth, her smile, her eye color. And yet I could see through her. So I could see her almost like she was made of light and color and light, but she was opaque. And I could see the radiator on the wall that was 3 foot behind her. She was stood not even a foot away from my side of the bed. So within a few seconds, I remember I reacted instinctively, which is to jump back, and I kind of side kicked her, which is my karate training coming in there. I didn't hit a solid object. My foot just passed through whatever, but she was still there. And it took about 20 seconds, I guess, of me staring intently at her. She was looking back at me, and her facial expression was one of happiness. It looked like she was kind of happy that I could see her, maybe. But I was scared. Right, I was bricking it, to be honest with you, because it was like, oh my god, what the hell? That's a ghost. And honestly, and then all of a sudden, she didn't disappear. She just dissipated into the dark of the room. So I plucked up my courage to basically peg it out of the room upstairs and got into bed with my housemate. It was a 6'4" Geordie. So I got into bed and basically said, right, I'm not going back downstairs till the morning. And I explained what happened. They all thought I was nuts. Then I graduated and I decided this is something I really want to do. I want to investigate the paranormal. I want to investigate ghosts specifically because there's something there. I know it's there. I need to find out more. And it took probably another 10 years or so before I built a forum. I set up the Ghost Finder Paranormal Society, and I started to do my own investigations and had fellow members join me, some of which are still with us today. And then it went on from there. I think lucky break on television and that kind of thing, but that's helped me because it's opened my eyes to other areas of the paranormal world, including the fae. And I think I've obviously learned so much more. You're never an expert because you're constantly learning and evolving in this field. So I like to think that I'm knowledgeable and wise on certain things, but I'm always open-minded and ready to learn.
Yeah, I think that's the key. And I think going back to the book that you just showed, for me, the fae is just one other realm, and we are getting into a sphere as paranormal investigators where we're having to say we need to open our minds. And the books from the 60s, 70s and 80s were a jumble of all different topic areas. They weren't just haunting and nothing else. You know, people were discussing how there was a cross-pollination of different disciplines, and it's something, you know, that I very much believe in, that we can't sort of work in a blinkered view. The only way that we're going to be able to gain answers is by being open-minded and by looking at the possibilities of what other could this be. I mean, we saw with the Ghost Adventures crew with the Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah. That for me was it was a biggie, because they were talking about UFOs, they were talking about ancient land beings, they were talking about hauntings. It wasn't just, you know, going out and finding spooks. It was something much bigger. I think when we start doing that, we will start getting truths, we will start getting answers. And for me, the fairy aspect, and I'm so pleased that you guys on Help My House is Haunted took this on board and took it on board with a seriousness, because it is quite a whimsical subject matter that can be dismissed quite easily, and especially in the world of ghost hunters, where it is kind of, come on ghost, you know, it's quite, you know, headstrong, and then suddenly, come on fairies, doesn't have that same sort of macho ring to it, does it? Or come on demons, you know. So it's nice that you guys moved that on. And one of the things that interested me particularly about the work that you were doing, and subsequently in other episodes, was using the technology that we use within ghost hunting to get verification of these beings, and that opens up a raft of questions. And before we get into sort of the specifics about those episodes and what evidence you caught, for those who don't know, because you are EVP King, you are, you know, the wielder of that EVP, and you do get some phenomenal results. I've been with you where I've been like, wow, you know, that's a full sentence. It's been amazing. What is an EVP? How does it work?
So essentially, EVP is the acronym. It stands for electronic voice communication, or electronic voice phenomena. And it's a form of ITC, which is instrumental transcommunication. So you're using, if I can grab mine, let's have a look. I've got a couple up here. This is my Fables Olympus VP10 voice recorder. And you use it by asking questions into the ether, and you are trying to pick up the electronic voices of the dead. So that's what EVP is, speaking to spirit, and they are going to communicate using one of these devices. You don't have to have the most expensive piece of equipment, but it's not just about holding out a voice recorder or placing it somewhere and saying, hello spirits, can you tell me your name? Won't always work that way. The reason why I think I am quite successful at getting EVPs is because you have to use intent and the power of thought at the same time. When you're communicating to spirit, I'm not psychic, I'm not telling you, I'm claiming to be psychic, but you have to, okay, well everyone is to some extent, but you have to put it out there, you have to think your words, and you have to be trying to speak, you know, telepathically at the same time as verbally. So your sound waves are in there in the ether, and the spirit beings are able to hear these sounds, but also hear your thoughts, know what the intent of the question is, and because they feel comfortable, they try to communicate back. Now, what we don't know is how that is possible. No one does. What we do know is that, you know, using frequencies that are available on certain recorders and a range of frequencies, you're able to pick up responses. And these responses are anomalous because they don't seem to emanate from anywhere else other than the ether in this black spot. So, for example, you know, you were with me, Kate, when we went to investigate the True Crime Museum down in Hastings, and I was standing by this electric chair, which we don't know how real it is in terms of, has it been added to, or is it partly real, whatever. Asking the question, what is your name? And there's a clear response saying Albert Heathfield. But then I heard that as a DVP, and that means direct voice phenomena. That's when somebody, either one person or member of the group you're with, will hear the audible response in the ether, and they hear it and they think, where did that come from? Oh my God, did you hear it? And someone says no, but only a few people did. That's all to do with frequencies as well, and the way you're tuning in with your brain. But in this particular occasion, I heard the response first time round. So I asked the question again, and then I got the same response again. So we had a full name said twice in a different tone and frequency range that was recorded both times on this recorder. To me, that's phenomenal evidence. It is something that is, you just can't recreate that. It wasn't a controlled condition scientifically because you had other members of the public there. But what you do have is the understanding and knowledge that for those small group of people that were there, they can corroborate the fact that no one had spoken and that it was quiet when the recording took place. But to get it twice just defies logic and all reasoning. So electronic voice phenomena is one of my favorite techniques. Probably it is my favorite technique during a paranormal investigation and ghost hunting. And I rely on this form of evidence because it's something that's fairly tangible, like video, but video and photographs are open to more fabrication,
Yeah.
fraud, hoaxes, and that kind of thing. It's difficult to kind of tell the real thing these days. But with the audio, you know, you play it back instantly, and with the speaker, and everyone can hear it, and they
Hmm.
go, "Wow! Well, we weren't speaking, so where did that voice come from?"
Hmm. And it instantly gives you that opportunity then to carry on a conversation, doesn't it, with
Yeah,
spirit, because you're getting that instant response. You're not waiting on photos, you're not searching around on photos or videos, so you can have that interaction that's more natural, can't you? So you're hearing their voice. And in terms of taking groups, and it's not a controlled environment, I mean, there is that side of it when you have people who are there and their intention is to communicate with those spirits as well, it can heighten that. So if you have a sterile environment where you're going out and you just have, you know, a box recording, there's theories about you having not the right energy fields to be able to capture this kind of thing. So I mean, like I say, when we've been out and about, there has been some phenomenal, I mean, I think back to the British School Museum,
yeah,
and we were down in that cellar area that was in between the school and one of the outbuildings, and we were just getting some real freaky sort of growls and kind of growly voices sort of coming through that were just like, everybody was like, whoa, where did that come from? And it is, every time I hear them, it's amazing. It amazes me, especially when you having that personal experience and it's totally undeniable
yeah.
that you know your environment, you know the people around you, that you're getting this communication back. So let's go on to the Pixie House. We'll talk about how that experience was for you a little bit later. I've talked to Jane Harris about this, and we talked very, very briefly about that, but me and Jane we went off on all kinds of little tangents about herbs and about, you know, witchcraft and that kind, as you can imagine that we did.
Yeah.
But you were picking up, which that really did surprise me. You were picking up from the Fae realm, or things that were alluding that they were from the Fae realm within that episode. What kind of things were you getting on your EVP and other equipment that kind of put you into that, we've got something different here?
Well, during Chris's psychic walk around, which happens before we actually physically investigate the property, he recorded probably 15 minutes worth of audio, and I think he asked the question, "Are there imps here?"
Mm-hmm.
And it said yes. He got a response, and then he said, um, "What type of creature are you?" or something like that, and it said Puckwudgie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Puckwudgie is an American elemental creature or being similar to a little goblin kind of troll thing. And there's a couple of illustrations online where they have quite sharp looking hair and long snouts, and they look like gnomes
Mm-hmm.
basically, but a little bit more violent looking. He said Puckwudgie, what is that? And it's something that he'd never come across. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't know. So he was saying, "This is Puckwudgie. What is it?" We Googled it, and he realized, "Oh my God, this kind of a weird creature." So it linked in and corroborated with what he said. Then when we started to investigate, so just before filming began, Chris and I were having a chat outside in the garden area of this house. And I'm facing him, he's facing me. And from our peripheral vision, that's my left and his right, we both saw at the same time a creature no bigger than about 3 foot in height, standing on two legs, that was hairy and had spiky hair and a little snout that kind of looked to me like a walking beaver. I know it sounds weird, but it's all I could see from there. It was brown and black in colour, and it literally ran from the garden wall into the side of the house. There's no door. It ran in the wall. But Chris and I both looked at each other and what the hell was that? And we turned and went, "Did you see that?" And he went, "Yeah." "Did you see that?" And yep. "Oh my God." So we both even drew what we saw,
Mm-hmm.
and very similar interpretations of what we'd seen. That blew me away because I'd never in my life had seen anything other than human spirit form or light anomalies or shadow beings that looked humanoid.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm scratching my head thinking, what are we dealing with? I'm no expert in this field. This is something new to me, but I need to know more. Hence the reason why I called you, Kate.
Yeah.
Um, Now, just for the viewers' benefit, for those that have seen Help My House is Haunted and that particular episode, which is the Devon Cottage House, um, I phoned you, Kate. You didn't know where we were, where I was.
Mm-hmm.
I just said, we're on a case, we're on location, and we're dealing with something here. and I think you gave me the information that I'm dealing with pixies.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, why are they here? And you explained about the desecration of trees,
Mm-hmm.
specifically apple trees.
Mm-hmm.
And what you didn't know, Kate, was that the owners of that property had moved from France to
Mm-hmm.
Devon. And before they moved, they were living on an orchard where they cut down several apple trees. And oh my God, the link, just all the light bulbs went bing, bing, bing.
Mm-hmm.
It blew my mind. I mean, a lot of the viewers wouldn't see all of that, but that was why it happened. But going back to your question on what did we get EVP wise, Chris got that first Pukwudgie EVP, and it's very clear. But as we were doing our investigation, we got confirmation from something that wasn't human, and it wasn't what we'd call an imp. And maybe we've just classified imps all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, we've been saying there's imps here, but actually they're just a form of elemental creatures. So I started to open my mind to the concept that some of the non-human entities that we were meeting along our journey were in fact from this other realm and other dimension. Were they earth elementals? Were they fire, water, air? I don't know, but I've done a lot of research since then, as you know, and to try and find out more. So I'm better informed about
Mm-hmm.
this moving forward. But the responses we were getting were almost coming from them. They
Yeah.
were speaking in an English language that we could interpret and understand. But more importantly, we were capturing some of these responses on our recordings. And that's myself, Chris, and Jane.
Mm-hmm.
So moving forward, I don't think I could ever go into an investigation with one mindset, which
Mm-hmm.
is I'm looking at human spirits or demonic entities or whatever. I am now open minded to the idea that there are different dimensions with different creatures that we might consider cryptids and those kinds of things. But actually, there's a realm and a dimension for these beings, and it's the world of the fae, which some people, like you said, go, no way, that's impossible. That's written in books,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I'm sorry, but it's not just in books because they're all based on some element of truth, and
Yeah,
I think we
definitely.
found some. Yeah.
I think there was subsequent episodes as well where you were going into them and you were coming across, and I understand definitely where the terminology imp came from, because when you've been working in the paranormal field and non-human entities have been either demonic or angelic, and they've been to those extremes, that imp is an easy word to transition from demonic to imp, because it like I say, within the world of fae, if you were to say you're being haunted by a pixie, people in that location are going to go, what? But if you put it into that context of it's an imp, and an imp was seen as a lesser demonic, and that's how it was portrayed, especially sort of after Christianity came across Europe, it was categorized in that kind of it was lumped in with the demonic. So I can definitely understand why that became a terminology that took place in Help My House is Haunted. But there were subsequent episodes, weren't they, where you came across, there was, I can't remember where the specific location was, but it was in the couple's garage where there was almost like an infestation going off of these creatures, and you were getting evidence from that to sort of Chris was seeing them. He was, there was a feeling that the atmosphere was palpable with the energy at that time. What bits of evidence did you gain from that particular episode? Which episode was it?
I think that was the Norfolk one, the Tivichal Murder
Yes.
House.
Yes.
And yeah, you're right. We seem to have multiple layers of spirit infestations there. There were human spirits there. There was this serial killer. Say if a serial killer, he was a murderer, but his energy was back there, part residual, part intelligent. There was some other more shadow being in the property as well. But outside, we had elemental energies, and I do think that, well, in this particular occasion, I don't think we were dealing with the pixies, who seemed to actually be quite fond of us to an extent where they were giving us information and they were guiding us along and helping us. What we were dealing with was something a little bit more disruptive, a little bit more malevolent, but maybe not in an evil way, but more mischievous.
Yeah.
And I was scratched on the back in that outhouse, in that barn shed, whatever it was. We got some SLS footage as well of small creatures, smaller, stick figures that were darting across and hiding. And we caught EVPs in there as well. But I think you're right. The evidence, the atmosphere was palpable. myself, Chris felt it, so did the client, so did the crew as well. We all
Hmm.
experienced some element of this. But everywhere we go, there seems to be, and I think it's Chris. Chris has been, for many years, been able to pick up on these multi-dimensional beings,
Hmm.
and he could never differentiate between the imp and the other entities, the other elemental creatures and beings.
Hmm.
So now we have some subcategories where we're hoping to now delve a little bit deeper to find out which particular creature, elemental, which particular being are we dealing with, and
Yeah.
asking the question, what are you?
Yeah.
What type of being are you? And they use words that we are likely to understand, probably from a telepathic point of view.
Hmm.
Hence the reason why Chris is from the States and they said Pukwudgie. But then we also got the word pixie twice on EVP.
Hmm.
I understand what a pixie is.
Yeah.
Fairy, gnome, goblin, all of these things.
Hmm.
So it's possibly down to the fact that the intelligence there is so strong that they're able to understand what our rationalized thought process is and understand um, what our knowledge consists of to give us validation that we need. And
Yeah.
they're not afraid to do it. The
Hmm.
more you ask, the more you get.
I mean, I have come across in my research, and I've never been a fairyologist. I've never really delved too much within the folklore history and fairy tale. I've always been interested in modern day encounters, and that cross sort of reference into, aliens, etc. That's been where my big sort of thing's been. But recently, I've been going back and looking at folklore and fairy tale, because actually there's loads of clues in that. And one of the things that comes up time and time again historically is that the fae can't lie. So if you start interacting with them, they can't lie. And I haven't found out why that is. It's just one of those things that's a given. It's almost like fairy lore. So where you've got demonics who or who are masters at lying, and manipulation of the situation is their ultimate game. Fairy, if you say, what are you, they can't say, oh, I'm Mr. Jones. They have to tell you who they are, which makes it a really interesting interaction. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm pursuing, is all these dotted ideas within fairy folklore. But one of the other things that really fascinates me at the moment is, are fae aware of the spirits of the dead? Do they interact? Are they on different planes? And why do they seem to accumulate within the same buildings? It's like, if they don't know of each other, is it because of the energy that's created that's attracting them, and vice versa for ghosts? Is that something that you've kind of considered about the questions around that?
Yeah, and I think you're right in pretty much all aspects there, definitely. And I think the key thing for us was that I realized that there must be crossroads where people, the only way to explain it is a portal, a vortex, are created, allowing the elemental creatures to come in and out.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps they're stronger in certain areas of England, hence the reason why there's a high concentration of the Fae, especially with the stories in Devon and Cornwall, Somerset, Wiltshire, places like that. So that's possibly it. That Stonehenge runs on that, that fantastic ley line there, the intersection. The energy at those places and those locations is stronger and heightened, and I do believe that it allows them to come through to our realm and back again. So the interaction possibilities there are greater.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I think asking the right questions at a time will allow the right answers. But I've never come across any elemental fey creature in the city where I live.
Mm-hmm.
Only when I seem to go to the forests and countryside.
Mm-hmm.
So they are nature spirits,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what some people interpret elementals as nature spirits. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Lep Castle in Ireland, for example, there's this legend of an elemental, but people have considered the elemental to be a demon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, an elemental is not a demon. So it is this creature that we just haven't categorized yet, and it might well be some form of goblin or gnome or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But they like it there. Leave them in peace. They're
Mm-hmm.
happy, But by going to their place, going to their homeland or their place where they dwell and congregate, you're more likely to get that level of interaction and some of the answers that you're looking for, especially using ITC.
Mm-hmm.
We can't always photograph them or video them, but you might be able to get them to speak using a spirit box or Bluetooth wave kind of connection, or cell phones, or voice recorders,
Mm-hmm.
and that's seemingly what we're trying to capitalize on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I one of the things that I know from working in the Fae, and definitely when recently when I've been kind of upping my game, that once you start opening yourself up to them, they make themselves very, very apparent. And I've had some fantastic experiences. I've also had some incredibly terrifying experiences of that world. I was writing an article that I haven't published, I don't think I'll ever publish. And I got to the end of the article, and it was about how to banish them, and how to rid yourself of them. And the night that I finished that, I had an interaction that scared me so much that I knew it was because I was putting out information into the world about how to get rid of these beings. And I was like, whoa, this is a full spectrum. We have a full spectrum going off here, and it is about sort of being respectful to these beings. But one of the things that I did notice was when I upped my game and started interacting, I seem to have gained a little bit of an entourage. So sometimes I'll get, different. I've got one that's kind of permanently with me that I have to keep under control, if you like. Keep, sort of tell them what's what behavior wise. I know that Chris, from his Instagram stories, he has had that sense as well, and he's also now started to I suppose give offerings in nature to have that kind of respect. Have you had anything sort of follow you or open up to you that's been outside of investigations?
Yeah, a lot, I guess, and they're not always human spirits. I mean, I'm quite used to the human side of things, but I would consider that whatever has followed me or made its home here in my house are imp-like creatures, but these ones were a bit more malevolent and a bit more mischievous to cause mischief, mayhem, upset, torment. But they like to feed on fear. They also like to scare you, and they get a kick out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So where it comes to try and banish them conventionally, I mean, that's not my area of expertise either. I've learned from other people. But my wife, as you know, Lucy, she's into witchcraft. She's a practicing witch, clairvoyant, and she relies on her spell work, her magic, and her intent, and it seems to work. It always seems to appease the situation. As it flares up, you get to appease it again, but then after a couple of weeks it might build up again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because you can't get rid of them. You can only appease them or subdue them a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It doesn't scare me anymore. I think the more you understand it, the less scared you become.
Mm-hmm.
But you're very right as also that if you're going to put out there into the universe, this is how to get rid of them,
Mm-hmm.
they aren't going to like that. And they will do everything in their power in the universal laws to stop you and prevent you from doing that, whether
Yeah.
it's through nightmares, physical interaction, visual spectrum work, or other things, influencing other people, for example. Yeah.
I mean, that experience for me definitely did put me on a different tact of not how to banish them, but actually how to work with them. And it sort of sent me off, and I was very grateful afterwards. But I don't think I would have taken the message if it had been lightly. If I'd have had a sort of whisper in my ear of "don't do it" or something like that, I'd have been like, "Yeah, I'm going to do it." But it was a pretty terrifying experience. It's so nice to see that you're on the same page, and I have noticed that I was sitting in one of your workshops, and you brought up there was some footage that had been on YouTube, and I'd never come across this as well, so I found this super interesting. And it was let me get this name right, it was Erwin Saunders.
Yeah,
this guy right. And he's almost like a legend in his own right now, because he disappeared and nobody can track him down on social media. Nobody can find any kind of information for who he was or where he lived or anything contactable. And there is actually Facebook pages now that are looking for him, that where is he, where's he gone? And he filmed a series of short films where he was capturing the Fae within a beautiful settings. Now, a few people looked at this, and there is the element of debunkable, but for me it was more like, it doesn't really matter, you know, that it doesn't matter whether it was real or not. It was the enchanting nature about it, and the fact that it captivated you as well when you were watching it. To, you know, you'd obviously got to a point where you knew that fae weren't these pretty little fluttery things. So I understand why you put that in the workshop. There's some really interesting discussions. Can you remember what people were saying about it? I think it was quite a shocker, wasn't it, for a lot of people?
I didn't expect the kind of response, but I added it because for me, I think the workshop was on spirits, poltergeists and hauntings. So I kind of wanted to add the element of elementals, as they are, to me, classified now as a haunting type, an elemental haunting. And a lot of people still believe that, but the majority don't. So I added it in there, and it's something I came across on YouTube. And, you know, I'm looking at it now. I've got it up on my other screen. And the video footage was clear as crystal, HD quality, 1080p plus, whatever. And Erwin was not shocked or surprised. And he was saying, look, there he is, up there on top of the ridge. And you see this tiny little fairy, he calls it that one a fairy, peering out, you know, very small creature, beautiful. It's the word I can use to describe it is it's a beautiful thing. And the feedback were, no way, that's got to be photoshopped or whatever, video edited in CGI. In fact, Adrian, who comes on the workshops, Adrian was the director of photography on Help My House is Haunted season 1 and 2. Good friend of mine, fantastic at what he does, and he does all this stuff. And he said it is possible that it's CGI. He said it would take a lot of time, a bit expensive to some extent in terms of time and equipment, but it's possible to do that. Did Erwin do that? Or did he get someone else to do that? So someone out there knows if it is real or not. And a lot of people were, oh my God, I'm blown away. That is amazing. And maybe now that they're looking into the fae or, you know, or the world of elementals seriously, I just felt it was too good not to show people. Despite, you know, and I put my hand up and say, I want to believe it's real. And I don't know, I can't find anything else out. I mean, Erwin's disappeared, like you said. People are looking for him. There's a couple of conspiracy theories that he's been abducted by the fae.
I hope so.
This guy looks like David Bellamy. I mean, something like his beard's out here, and I reckon it was. I mean, some people said it's fake. He said that's a stick-on beard, and he doesn't look like that. I hope he looks like that. I imagine he does. He's well spoken. He's well educated. He's just a kind of like a forest dwelling botanical nut. I'll tell you, Erwin, if you watch this, right, please get in touch with Kate or myself. Be interviewed. We want to know more. I'd love to go on a journey with you to see this myself. But let's have him back. I don't care that if it's real or not. I think that we need to see more of this.
Definitely. I mean, in terms of evidence of fae, I mean, it is. I mean, there are publication after publication after publication out there about encounters right the way historically, right the way up to modern day, and actually modern day ones are incredibly interesting. And I think that in terms of the raft of kind of collation of evidence that we have in the paranormal ghost hunting world, there doesn't seem to be that in the fairy realm. And I wonder why that is. I know people are very much interested in ghosts and spirits, and not going out there sort of fairy hunting. I have dubbed it fairy hunting, which I don't think the fae like at all. They don't like the kind of hunt word on it. But it would be nice to see that kind of evidence come out. And I mean, the photos that we've got historically, the Cottingley fairies, you know, they were unfortunately debunked, but the legend of it was still there, and these girls did truly believe that they had experiences and they wanted to convey it to adults, etc. I really can't think. There's a couple of other YouTube ones that I've come across. One you posted today where I've just gone, oh, okay. And there is another one, and I think again it's in a South American country, where there's a child playing in a dining room, and a small sort of goblin-y type thing sort of runs sort of the outskirts of the room and then through a door. And I've just gone, whoa, you know, that's pretty good. And the other ones that are coming out are these sylph-like characters, like these kind of orby things that are behind me, that emit light. And it's because it's in its infancy and people having these modern captures. I just go cynical. I go paranormal investigator cynical on these things. Unfortunately, I think, you know, we know that when you get bugs that are snapped with a flashlight, that they do create this almost halo of light around them as they're moving their wings. But getting back to the one that you posted today, I saw that and I was a little bit cheeky with you about it, and I just posted, oh, it's Dobby. Can you talk through that particular video and why it caught your eye?
I was doing my normal trawl through the internet and YouTube, and on a specific YouTube account, I saw this video. I think it was translated from Russian originally, I believe, but it was in Mexico, and there was a father filming on his mobile phone, which doesn't seem to be a very good quality one at all. He's filming his young daughter crawling under the kind of cupboard in the kitchen, but she has a bowl and she's got something in there, I think, a bit of food, whatever. But she seems to be focused intently on something else that's in there, almost trying to say, come on, here, have some food, or hello, I want to play with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't understand. All he's saying is, what are you doing, daughter? I think I haven't translated that myself yet. I do speak Spanish. I have to listen to it again. And the little girl looks at him and looks back and kind of pushes her bowl forward, and a small hand with 3 fingers, just 3, grey looking, kind of pops itself out almost to touch her or put its hand in the bowl, and then pulls away quickly. You only see it for less than, maybe less than a second. It's quick. I was like, no way. That to me looks like what Chris has described as an imp's hand, the 3 fingers, but actually there's 2 fingers and this kind of thumb-like appendage with normally quite sharp talons, and that's seemingly what he's seen and drawn, and other people have described as well. But that's one species of type of creature. I don't know. I think on my post I put something like, "Is this an alien? Okay. Is this an imp or another cryptid?" What I mean by that is, it in the world of elementals, what type of being is it? We're not going to know, but I believe it's real. I honestly believe. I don't believe anyone's faked that. I don't think it's been CGI'd in there. It's too low res, and it's filmed portrait, not landscape. And the time it would have taken just to add that very small detail in is pointless. It defeats the object of putting it in there. It was posted legitimately, but the guy filming it, the father, doesn't react to it because he didn't see it. So that brings up 2 questions. Did he miss it because he was looking at the daughter or whatever, and it was so quick? Or was it in the spectrum of light that he was unable to see in our white light spectrum, but picked up on the video camera he was using? I think it's great. I think there are lots of these things out there, like the one you said of the little goblin creature running around the floor in the kitchen. I saw that and I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. I mean, is that real? Wow.
Yeah. It's almost like we need not a paranormal explained show. We need a fae explained show, where we, look at all these videos and try and sort of break them down and look at other possibilities and then come to some kind of conclusion about what they are or what they're not. Because you do get snippets of these bits of footage where people are like, no idea what this is, and it can only be in that fae realm. It's interesting that you mentioned about the cryptozoology is it's the realms of physical manifestations of beings that we can't explain, and in that you have things like alien big cats, which are your pumas, etc., that are roaming around the countryside. At one stage, interestingly enough, the ring-necked parakeet was part of a crypto. People didn't believe that it could exist in Britain, and now they're absolutely prevalent down south everywhere. It's not unheard of to see them, which gives me hope that there are alien big cats out there, and they're real.
I've got 2 out the front here.
No.
Yeah, they sit in the tree over the road.
Yeah. I mean, as a kid, I started reading 14 times at around about 13 years old, and that was all over. People are spotting these birds that shouldn't be in this country, and now it's just every day, isn't it? I had a discussion yesterday which that pulled out lots of different elements, but one of them was that I'd never ever thought of, and I don't know why. But the woman I was talking with said, have you heard the theories that Bigfoot is fae. And I was like, no, you've got to tell me more. And she's like, the theory is that fae come in and out and can be material in this realm, and then can step back and be etherical in their own realm. So the theory is why, tracks of Bigfoot just disappear. You'll find tracks in mud and then it will just stop. Would indicate that. And then we started talking about, this where one discipline stops, and actually the intervention of another discipline would provide that answer. So it is about thinking outside the box with these things, isn't it? It is about saying, like you say about that video, is it alien? Is it imp? Is it something else? What are people's viewpoints on this? And we do it all the time with evidence that we get from the spirit realm. Is it an orb? Is it dust? Is this EVP classification an A, B, or C? We ask these questions, but it's, why are we scared to ask questions around fae? Where do you think the fear from that is?
Well, I just think it stems from the very fact, like, in this book here, you've got the stories of the Cottingley fairies and that kind of thing. And I believe that people just interpret it as fiction, and something that they've seen in Disney movies and cartoons, where it's fictionalized to a point where it's a child's imagination. So there is an element of truth behind that. Again, popular culture has a part to play. But when you do experience something as crazy as seeing a creature run to a wall that doesn't look human, or picking up EVPs or photographs or these videos that we talked about, well, you have to start thinking outside the box. And it's so important for any paranormal investigator to be open-minded with regards to all of these other things that we're talking about. Why? Because it still encompasses in the world of the supernatural. It's part of that. One day, we will have clearer lines of delineation between these categories. But for now, I think they're interwoven because they are ethereal and material, and our world isn't as it seems.
Definitely.
We see it in these kind of three-dimensional solid objects. I don't believe that for a minute. I think everything is a construct. I know you talked about this before as well, but yeah, we won't go into that because it's completely out there. But it's definitely think fifth dimensionally,
Yeah, that's definitely one for another chat. I mean, when I talk about fae, we've got a teammate, Phil. Love Phil to bits, but whenever I talk about this kind of thing, I almost have Phil is my extreme end of kind of keeping my feet on the ground, and I know that when we've discussed the fae, Phil's hugely skeptical of it, bless him, but that's what makes him a great investigator, because he comes from that skeptical point of view and sort of keeps our feet on the ground with way out ideas. He reels me back a lot of the time with these things. What other reactions, I mean, outside the team, obviously, what other reactions have people given you? Have you had that? Have you lost the plot here, Barry, or what? What reactions have you had?
Interestingly, I've had more positive reactions than negative. And I think that's because a lot of the people that have watched the program, for example, or follow me on social media, they're open-minded and they want to believe. But then, is that a power of suggestion? Could I come up with anything and they would believe it? And what we don't want people, anyone watching this, we want people to use a skeptical viewpoint and standpoint, but be open-minded to the possibility of things. So looking at that video today, for example, a lot of people saying it's fake. Well, give me a bit more of an explanation as to why. Have we got any proof that it's been doctored? If not, then what could it be? Well, it's a domestic pet. Do domestic pets have long fingers? 3 of them, grey, skin hairless? Not really, no. Do you understand what I'm saying? So let's be pragmatic about it. But the reactions I've had have been largely positive. In fact, we were a little bit apprehensive about going down the route of talking about the Fae, especially for Help season 2. Jane, myself, Chris said we have to put it out there. The world needs to know, and we are probably the first paranormal TV program in the world that's ever covered that in an episode in the detail that we have done. We're fortunate that we started a trend, because I've seen other programs now where they're touching upon it, Ghost Adventures and Portals and whatever. So it's now becoming a bit more accepted in the paranormal community, and thanks to Help My House is Haunted.
Yeah.
but it's not something that we just leave there. Like you said, I think any investigation that we do, future cases, we'll always be looking at the possibility of what type of haunting are we dealing with. Okay, it could be this,
Hmm.
and I won't dismiss it. I won't be saying don't talk nonsense as I would have done 5 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, Now I'll be okay. Let's consider why, and then let's delve a bit deeper. Let's ask some questions. Did we
Hmm.
get any responses? We did. We got, what type of creature are you? And it says pixie.
Hmm.
Well, we got it in black and white, or audio crystal clear. Heard. Let's investigate down that pathway and find out more, because eventually, like you said, one of us in the world will get some of these answers that will be a breakthrough.
Hmm.
And the breakthrough, like we had with EVP back in the 70s, will come with the Fey world, and it'll be something caught on video and audio on television.
Yeah.
I can see that now.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do hope so. And then from there, I mean, what happens? What happens if we get this kind of, this evidence that, when we get that sequential evidence of things where it's audio, it's video, it's other equipment, and it's like, wow, we know this is happening. Where do we go from there? The possibilities are going to be
Yeah.
crazy, aren't they? Crazy. I mean, the
I can
next.
tell you what will happen. It's
Go
going to
on.
blend into the world of the paranormal. The world of the supernatural just encompass this as something that's always been there, but it'll
Mhm.
be now, it's really there. And what you'll find is you'll get these different teams of paranormal enthusiasts that won't be looking at just ghosts. They'll adopt the concept and idea of being Fey hunters,
Mhm.
yeah, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
or investigating elemental investigators or whatever.
Mhm.
And that's all they'll specialize in.
Mhm.
It will help because it means that there's more people to call upon with expert knowledge in those areas when you need to,
Yeah.
like you.
Yeah, I seem to have been the go-to thing, and one of the things that I wanted to set these chats up for was I don't have all the answers, and I think, when we have these chats with different people, and I've been really blessed with the people I've been able to talk with about it, that all the time little bits are coming out that I like. The chat about the crypto, the Bigfoot yesterday, and it's for me, it's like these chats are about a keeper of the knowledge and a keeper of where do we go next, how does this happen, do we use equipment, what is this all about, and to try and open it up to the paranormal world, and also invite those other disciplines in and say, as a paranormal community, let's start being open to them as well. Let's start joining forces and looking at, because there's a whole different raft of chats about UFOs and the involvement in haunted properties with interactions with aliens, because there are crossovers within those realms as well. Before you go, just two last things. It's interesting you said about the three fingers, because the three fingers has always been cited as a mocking of the Holy Trinity within the paranormal realms. And I'm not disputing that within the sort of demonic realm, but it's nice that we can start seeing that for something else. And I think also when you start talking in the world of Fae, it takes the level of fear down a notch. So if you're talking with people in a haunted building and what you're getting could be Fae interaction, but actually people don't know about Fae, and you say it's demonic, that level of fear then goes up, that level of interaction then goes up, because you are creating this atmosphere. But if we can discern between these things, then it's easier to understand how to bring harmony to that situation, but also to explain without fear to people, or take away the fear aspect. For me, I think that's the most important thing for people who are haunted. It's a horrible nightmarish situation to be in, and if somebody can come along and say, actually, we can be more specific on what these things are, so we can be more specific on how to deal with it. And I think that's the key of all paranormal investigators. We are all evidence driven because we want that evidence, but equally to that, we are all human driven as well, to the people that we are helping in those situations. Last little bit, I've just rambled there, haven't I? I've just kind of covered that and just rambled on. Last little bit, what's in the future for you? Where are you going? What you're going to be doing? And then after that, we want some shameless plug-in of social media platform, etc.
Well, I suppose everyone's locked down still in our current situation. It's been difficult. The year 2020 and this pandemic globally has affected everyone on different levels. With regards to TV work, productions were stopped midway, never started, postponed, or scrapped completely. Unexplained Caught on Camera will be back for season 2 on Really Channel, so that's something to look forward to. And also keep your eyes peeled. You never know when Help season 3 might return to your screens. So everything is kind of being driven at the moment by changes to the economy and the pandemic and those kinds of things. So it's a bit of a waiting game. But for me, I'm just carrying on with my research, and I've been delivering paranormal workshops online for people. And I might be doing some live videos, I think, in the future as well on Facebook, using my YouTube account as well. But that's about it.
No,
Yeah.
we've got Rowan coming up. We've got.
Well, we've got Row and Ruffham Airfield. So some postponed paranormal events, public paranormal events. So one is in a couple of weeks' time. Then we'll be doing Hellfire Caves again. That was postponed. That was back in April. And I'll be planning next year for other public paranormal events. So if there's anyone that wants to come and join myself and you, Kate, obviously, and the rest of the Ghost Finder Paranormal Society team, then they can do. They can just check out social media platforms, the Ghost Finder Paranormal Society website. That's ghostfinder.co.uk, or my social pages, which is on Facebook. It's at official Barri Ghai. On Twitter at I think my Twitter one is at Barri Ghai, and at Barri_Ghai on Instagram. And just follow us, find out what we're doing to keep up to date with things. But like I said, the world is changing, and we need to keep an open mind to encompass everything that it throws at us. And I think this year has been no exception to strange and bizarre. There's more out there. I guarantee that the truth will be revealed with the world of the fae soon.
I couldn't agree with you more. And what a way to end. Definitely what a way to end. So let's hope the paranormal community start embracing this, and we see the upping of the fae within that community. It'd be great. It'd be great. Thank you so much for your time. I know your time's really, really precious to you, Barry, as a big family man. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate. Take care. Speak to you later.
Bye.